It is 8:16 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. It is the 15th day of August, smack dab in the middle of it, 2025, and this is episode 1148 of Bitcoin, and this will probably be a shorter show. Friday shows don't tend to have a lot of uptake, so there's no reason to stretch it out. Plus, we've already burned through most of the news for the week that really mattered. We're still struggling with the Bitcoin price at around 117,000. It did not matter that Scott Bessent decided to backtrack what he said that yesterday morning on Fox Business that they weren't going to be buying any Bitcoin for the strategic reserve, and that coupled with the PPI numbers really sent some jolts through the market. And then we had the Michigan Consumer Price Sentiment? No, it was Michigan Consumer Sentiment numbers came out today, and the sentiment is lower. Generally speaking, people aren't really buying that much stuff because everything's really expensive. So it was yet another inflation number that is not helping. And then we're going to have housing starts coming up. Those numbers will start coming up on the 19th. So this is the frustrating part about Bitcoin, is that it may not be directly coupled with the stock market and other parts of the market, but it definitely is coupled with inflation numbers, and we've got more on the way. So just, sit tight, bros. just sit tight, and we'll deal with it later. But first, we are going to talk about India. We're going to go to Czechoslovakia. We're going to talk about a healthcare company that's going to turn into a treasury company. And the BIS. Oh, God, the BIS has released something that is, first of all, it's cringe. It's just cringe AF. But it probably is going to have some kind of impact. Google and Chrome and the browser wars. AI is coming for your browser, and there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. So it would be better, instead of fighting AI, okay? I really do think it's a better idea to learn how to use it and use it well. My wife calls it naive prompting, and I think what she really means about that is that people aren't learning how to actually use these tools. And she hated AI when it first came out, and she saw that it wasn't going to go away, so she decided that she was going to learn how to use it. And she has, and she's getting pretty good at it. And I kind of highly recommend that even if you hate the idea of AI, it is better to know your enemy than to be ignorant of your enemy. Honestly, that's probably something written in Sun Tzu. Let's go to India first, where India's first Bitcoin think tank launches on Independence Day. It has a mission, and it's called Financial Sovereignty. This is out of Bitcoin Magazine, written by one of our favorite authors, Frank Corva, on India's Independence Day, August 15th, 2025 at 12 a.m. local time. The Bitcoin Policy Institute of India, BPI India, announced its official launch. The think tank, which will advocate for Bitcoin as a strategic tool to help secure India's economic future, made this announcement on India's Independence Day to point out that national independence and financial sovereignty go hand in hand. The institute plans to provide data-driven research and education to policymakers, regulators, and citizens of India in efforts to foster a clear pro-Bitcoin policy framework, according to a press release shared with Bitcoin Magazine. It also plans to introduce Bitcoin as a hedge to geopolitical uncertainty, a network that can reduce transaction cost and a means to turn the country's abundant energy resources into a strategic monetary asset, the latter being a trend that has begun in many parts of the global south. Quote, just as India's freedom fighters of yore, they literally say that, just as India's freedom fighters of yore secured our political independence, this generation has the opportunity to secure our financial sovereignty on a global, open monetary standard, said a guy's name who I have no hope in hell of pronouncing properly, so I'm just going to bleep over it. He's one of the founding fellows at BPI India. Quote, our mission is to ensure India doesn't just participate in this new financial paradigm, but leads it. We are not just advocating for a technology, but for a stronger, more self-reliant India. So BPI India plans to address the critical needs for clear and concrete policy in a domain that its founding members believe is often marked by misinformation and regulatory ambiguity. Pausing to say, no shit. If you've been in the Bitcoin game for as long as I have, you've seen India flip-flop 8 ways from Sunday on how they approach Bitcoin. It is some of the most bizarre. It's like the Supreme Court somehow overriding their Congress, and Congress somehow or another overriding the Supreme Court, going back and forth of who can hold it. Is it even legal? Can banks hold it? And it's been yes and no and yes and no. And it's been that way since I've been in the game since 2015. India has literally no clue what to do when it comes to Bitcoin. So if anybody in the world needs a BPI, right now it's India. I swear to God, these people are very, very confused on Bitcoin. But for this reason, it plans to focus its efforts around 5, count them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 strategic pillars. 1, the Sovereign Mining Initiative. This provides guidance for how state-level government in India can best convert renewable energy into Bitcoin. 2, policy advocacy and research, and this serves as a credible resource for federal and state-level government officials. 3, the Strategic Research Initiative. This builds and strengthens the case for Bitcoin as a national and corporate treasury asset. 4, education, probably the most important, honestly. This helps demystify Bitcoin for the general public and promote broader financial literacy. 5, enabling commerce and payments. This one helps to accelerate the ability to make low-cost global transactions with Bitcoin in a country where payments on Bitcoin's Lightning Network have yet to become popular, which I find amazing, but whatever. Avi Bira, a founding fellow at BPI India, provided broader insights into BPI India's approach. Quote, our goal is to work with policymakers to bring greater clarity to the Bitcoin ecosystem. A predictable regulatory framework is the key to unlocking India's full potential for innovation while ensuring consumer protection, said Bura in a press release. He added that the first pillar of the Institute's approach was inspired by one of India's neighbors to the northeast. Our initial focus, this is a quote, will be demonstrating how a clear policy on sustainable Bitcoin mining can be a net positive for India's energy grid and creating sovereign wealth, much like the successful model seen in Bhutan, or Bhutan, however you want to pronounce it. The Institute will begin its work by publishing a white paper on state-level mining opportunities and by initiating educational briefings with policymakers. It will also issue what it calls the CFO Playbook, a guide for Indian corporations looking to adopt Bitcoin as a treasury asset. Many who have been working hard in the Indian Bitcoin space are anxiously waiting for BPI India to get started. Yeah, I'll bet. Quote, an institution like BPI India is not just welcome, it's necessary, said Shiran Joshai, education and events coordinator at Bitshala, a Bitcoin hub in India that trains the next generation of open source developers and designers. Quote, the global financial landscape is changing, and having a dedicated body to produce rigorous, India-focused research on this emerging asset class will be invaluable for both our public and private sectors to make informed decisions. So, this is BPI, but now it's in India. And Frank didn't really shake it out, but I'm pretty certain that BPI India is just simply an extension of the Bitcoin Policy Institute in general, which has started in the United States and has brought you things like, well, the Strategic Bitcoin Reserve. Even though, yes, I know we've got problems with the SBR, and everybody knows we've got problems with the SBR. Nobody seems to be able to finalize what it is or what it's going to do or if we're going to add to it or if we're going to sell it or if we're not going to. Nobody really knows. That confusion is frustrating. I get it. But the fact that we even had an executive order signed for an SBR really did come out of Bitcoin Policy Institute, or at least the seedlings started there. So BPI has really done some great work, and that's not the only thing they've done. They've been on the national front. They've been on the state level issue. BPI is literally everywhere, and now they've got one in India. At one point or another, I'm waiting for BPI Africa. I'm waiting for BPI Latin America. Those four together. Well, actually, there should probably be a BPI Europe, but let's just go with, India, Africa, and Latin America, along with the United States. Come on, man. You could probably change the whole world just with those four right there. So I feel good about it. I'm waiting to see how they actually proceed, and that will take some time to suss out. But then we go to Czechoslovakia. And this one's going to be very difficult for me, because Helen Parts might be able to write out Czechoslovakian names, but I sure as shit can't pronounce them. So please bear with me. Cointelegraph, Czech police. It's not really Czechoslovakia anymore. I know. I'm going to get hell for my crappy geography. Yes, I know. It's just Czech. Czech police arrest Darknet founder in $45 million Bitcoin donation case. Wow. Czech police have reportedly arrested Darknet marketplace founder in connection with a $45 million Bitcoin donation that prompted the resignation of a former justice minister earlier this year. Czech police intervened in the Bitcoin donation case that led to the resignation of a justice minister on Thursday, according to state chief police prosecutor, I messed that one up. According to chief state prosecutor, authorities were securing people and things. Oh God, that's a quote. He literally says this. The chief state prosecutor says that they were, quote, securing people and things. Is that like junk and stuff? This is a criminal case that was recently separated by the police authority for independent proceedings from joint proceedings. Although the statement did not mention any arrests, local reports suggested that police detained the Darknet founder, who is a convicted criminal who also allegedly paid 468 Bitcoin to the justice minister, the one who resigned, to avoid a new prison sentence. It was a bribe, and a big one too, 468 Bitcoin bribe. Holy crap. The Darknet founder, Jerkovsky, I guess is his name, I guess that's how you pronounce it, tried to escape police by climbing onto the roof of his home during a raid on Thursday night. His ex-wife confirmed the intervention, saying that a neighbor alerted her to the rooftop drama. The police then apprehended him and took him into custody. Jerkovsky is a Czech programmer and the architect of the illegal Darknet marketplace Sheep Marketplace. Yeah, sheep, like me, which was linked to drug trafficking, weapon sales, and counterfeit goods. According to some guy whose name I can't pronounce, Jerkovsky is estimated to have generated 680 BTC from operating Sheep Marketplace, which he launched in early 2013 when Bitcoin was valued at around $100. After terminating the marketplace in December of 2013 amid the shutdown of Silk Road, Jerkovsky also reportedly stole an additional 841 Bitcoin from the platform's buyers and sellers, so he rugged them, bringing his personal Bitcoin fortune to at least 1,500 Bitcoin. Now, fast forward to 2017. The Brno Regional Court sentenced him to 9 years in prison for embezzlement, drug trafficking, and illegal arms possession related to Sheep Marketplace. He was then released on parole for good behavior in 2021 after serving half of the 9-year sentence. But the story didn't end there, as Czech authorities never recovered Jerkovsky's Bitcoin holdings, which were suspected to be far more than 1,500 BTC. The Czech minister faced a scandal in May after accepting a Bitcoin donation from a convicted drug dealer, with local reports suggesting Jerkovsky's involvement. Linked the 468 BTC donation to something called Nucleus, another darknet marketplace that held 5,000 BTC in its wallet and reportedly connected to the programmer. The allegation surfaced shortly after blockchain analytics firm Arkham Intelligence traced a $77.5 million Bitcoin transaction from a Nucleus wallet in March, the platform's first transaction in 9 years. Okay, so somebody came back to life. According to Lucien Bourdon, a Bitcoin analyst at Prague-based hardware wallet company Trezor, Jerkovsky's saga is a reminder that criminal BTC activity is traceable on-chain. Quote, while regular folks have good privacy options, if you're a criminal or a government, Bitcoin isn't great for moving money quietly, Bourdon told Cointelegraph. Quote, large transfers can be traced, forever. Imagine if every fiat transaction involving government was just as visible. That's the kind of accountability we should strive for, he added. So this dude bribes a judge. The judge resigns, and they catch his ass due to Arkham Intelligence. Wow. It connected with somebody else. It looks like somebody else was trying to bribe another judge in their own court case, and Jerkovsky was connected to it. But it also sounds to me like Jerkovsky was actually operating both darknet sites. Who knows? Who knows? He's in jail. Hopefully he lost his Bitcoin wallet in a terrible boating accident. We'll have to see. Now healthcare and Bitcoin. And no, it's not Crowd Health. You should probably go check out Crowd Health, though. No. This is KindlyMD and Nakamoto have officially merged, and they do plan to buy 1 million Bitcoin. I wish you'd go ahead and pull the trigger on it at these low prices of around 117,000 per Bitcoin. Anyway, Bitcoin Magazine, and Nick is writing this one. Now, I brought this to you before. There was an announcement that KindlyMD was going to merge with Nakamoto. Now it's actually happened. So let's see if there's anything new on the horizon here. KindlyMD Incorporated and Bitcoin native holding company Nakamoto Holdings Incorporated have officially completed their long-anticipated merger, forming a publicly traded Bitcoin treasury vehicle with ambitions to acquire 1 million Bitcoin. The combined entity will operate under the KindlyMD name, trading on the NASDAQ capital market, while Nakamoto will function as a wholly owned subsidiary overseeing the Bitcoin financial services division. Quote, our vision is for the world's capital markets to operate on a Bitcoin standard. Today's merger represents the beginning of that journey for our company. Since I've started my journey in Bitcoin 13 years ago, I've always believed Bitcoin would become the most valuable asset in human history, held by every person, every government, every company. The securitization of Bitcoin has shown us how institutions will adopt it. We intend to drive that forward, David Bailey, CEO of the combined company, says. Now, Tim Pickett, who was the former KindlyMD CEO, but is now the chief medical officer for the combined companies, added, quote, we are thrilled. Oh, I love it when they start this way. We are thrilled to officially close our merger with Nakamoto, but rather we've built KindlyMD on operational and innovative excellence, and we are now extending that same principle to our capital strategy. Bitcoin gives us the ability to preserve value with the same integrity that we apply to delivering healthcare. End quote. The transaction generated approximately $540 million in gross proceeds through a private placement in public equity financing, which will be used primarily for Bitcoin purchases. A $200 million convertible note offering is expected to close tomorrow, which I guess that means, does that mean today? Hold on, I got to go check the timestamp on this. This was written yesterday. So yes, today a $200 million convertible note offering is expected to actually occur and finalize sometime today. Bailey, will lead as CEO and chairman of the board with a strengthened leadership team, including Amanda Fabiano as COO, Tyler Evans as CIO, and Andrew Crichton as CCO. Newly appointed independent directors include Charles Blackburn, Perry Ann Boring, Eric Weiss, Greg Exalis, there's no way I can pronounce that, and Mark Yusko alongside Pickett. The merged company's mission is clear. Build a premier institutional-grade Bitcoin treasury vehicle to drive corporate and government adoption of the asset. By leveraging advanced corporate finance strategies, Nakamoto aims to simplify Bitcoin integration into global capital markets and position itself as a leader in public market Bitcoin treasury management. Bailey reinforced his commitment on X, stating, quote, honored to officially join KindlyMD as CEO and chairman. Thank you for coming on this journey with me. Together, we will rebuild the world on the Bitcoin standard. One Nakamoto equals 1 million Bitcoin, end quote. Oh, God, for God's sakes. Can anybody sense that I'm a little confused here or possibly distressed? Maybe, I don't know. I don't want to say it, but I don't have a better word for it right now. I'm kind of throwing up in my mouth a little bit. What the hell does a healthcare company have anything to do with driving capital markets into Bitcoin? Can somebody please answer that question for me? The reason that it bugs me so much is that I see this a lot more now. And I'm not even just talking about Bitcoin treasury companies. I have this sense that some companies are just so far gone that they're reaching for any lifeline that they can to survive. What I have a sneaky suspicion, and I could be completely wrong because I'm not going to go look at their SEC filings, but this healthcare company, what is it, KindlyMD? It sounds to me like it's a failing company. And somehow or another, they've got a boatload of cash on their balance sheet, and I don't know, maybe they had lunch one day with David Bailey in Washington, D.C., and they got to be friends. Who knows what happens over about 15 drinks at a Washington, D.C. bar. But that's what it sounds like to me, because I have yet to see any story about KindlyMD and Nakamoto having anything at all to do with affecting fucking healthcare. Like KindlyMD, it is a healthcare company. It's not a finance company by any stretch of the imagination. Their speciality, their experience, and I'm going to say it, their credentials really are about healthcare. It doesn't mean that they don't have the prowess to be able to talk about finance. Sure, I guess. It's just that are you abandoning all of your healthcare? What am I trying to say here? Are you abandoning everything that you were? Clearly you're a healthcare company. Exactly what you guys do, I don't know, but it's okay. You have stated that you are a healthcare company. Are all your customers now interested in finance vehicles? It bugs me. Something about this one ain't right. I think this is yet one more Hail Mary, and Nakamoto is fine. I think this is a Hail Mary for KindlyMD. I think what happens is that we start seeing these Bitcoin treasury companies grow, if the ones that will survive outside of Strategy, Metaplanet, and Similar Scientific. Those are the three that I actually think survive. Metaplanet and Strategy, because they've got a lot of Bitcoin, and if they know how to leverage it, they'll be fine. Similar Scientific has nowhere close to the amount of Bitcoin, but they have revenue. Okay, so from that standpoint, I expect them to actually survive. But there's about 27, 50, maybe 75 other companies that have now, quote, turned into Bitcoin treasury companies, and I don't think they're going to make it unless they go look for companies that have cash on their balance sheets and do these mergers, and then convert that cash on their balance sheet to actually make more Bitcoin, which turns themselves into a magnet. And all of this, it's like a gravity well. So you think of like, if it's big enough, it's got enough mass, and it's out in space, all of a sudden other little asteroids start getting attracted to it because of the laws and forces of gravity, and boom, it starts aggregating. That's the only way these other Bitcoin treasury companies survive, if they cannot come up with some kind of revenue model. And even then, that doesn't mean that they survive for the long term. It does mean short to medium term, not only, healthy, but actually thriving. So this is what I expect to have happen. Let's run the numbers. Futures and commodities. West Texas Intermediate oil taking a beating today, $63.36 after being down a point. Brent North Sea is down 0.75 of a point to 66.32. Natural gas is up almost 4 full points, back up to $2.95. And gasoline is down a full point to $2.08 a gallon. Shiny metal rocks not doing well either. Gold, however, is up 0.25 of a point to $33.90 and 7 dimes, and silver is down 0.12. Platinum taking a hit, 1.02% in the red. Copper is up 2/3 of a point, while palladium is the loss leader at 2.7% to the downside. Ag is fully mixed today. Biggest winner, it looks to be soybeans. Soybeans, 1.2% to the upside. Biggest loser is now chocolate. No, it's cotton, 0.5 a point to the downside. Meanwhile, live cattle are in the green, 0.11% to the upside. Lean hogs are up 0.5. Feeder cattle are floating in the green, but generally moving sideways. Legacy indice markets, Dow is up 0.25 of a point, while the S&P is down 0.25. NASDAQ is down a full 0.5, and the S&P Mini is down 0.4 of a point. And we are looking at a price of, just over $117,000 per Bitcoin. That is a $2.3 trillion market cap. Oh, good Lord. We just hit 116.9. I get really, really irritated with people like Scott Bissett who don't understand that when they say words that they have influence for whatever reason. Maybe they shouldn't have any influence whatsoever, but they do. And when I go back and I listen to what Scott Bissett said, him actually saying the words, I'm starting to wonder if he meant that he really meant that they weren't going to buy any Bitcoin, because he just said, we're not going to buy that. But the way the sentence structure worked, and if you listen to people talk a lot, there's something about the way he said that doesn't make any sense. And it makes me wonder if he meant to say that shit at all. And that's why he had to come back out with the tweet and backtrack what he was saying they were still going to look for what was it? Budget neutral ways to purchase Bitcoin for the SBR. Whatever. I honestly don't think that he had as much impact as the PPI numbers did yesterday. And of course, the Michigan consumer sentiment numbers that came out today. And if housing starts don't look good, and they probably won't, we're going to see some pressure there too. And remember, that's on the 19th of this month. Money supply for Bitcoin is 19,906,572.69. Average fees per block are low, 0.03 BTC, taking fees on a per block basis. Looks to be about 30, a little bit over 30 blocks carrying 75,000 unconfirmed transactions, waiting to clear. High priority rates of 4 Satoshis per VByte. Low priority is going to get you in at 3. Hash rate has dropped, but only a little. 906 exahashes per second. We'll have to see what Block Jack Dorsey's company, they just released news on the proto rig. We'll see if any of those come online here pretty quick and shore that up for us. Now on to Easy Cheesy. Yesterday's Bitcoin and episode. I got Jay with 5,000 sats. That's the way to donate to the show. That's the kind of shit that keeps me going, man. You can have plenty of good ideas about a system from outside that system. Sometimes it's even necessary to be outside and bereft of credentials or experience to even see the system clearly enough to see what can or should be improved. Credentialism was always about control. Who has the right to be decision makers? It might do us good to give more credit to crazy outsiders with wacky but valid ideas. Thank you. I appreciate that, Jay. Now, on to npub. I can't read an npub. It's just human and readable. So let's just say that a nostrich is over here giving me 555 sats, says, I once witnessed an older gentleman approach a Bitcoin ATM while on my travels. The problem? He thought it was a new lottery kiosk. The frustration was incredible to see. Thank you for the news that we now use. You're welcome. Turkey with 500 says nothing as usual. And this is the one that I've been waiting to get to. ATYH, I'm not exactly sure if that's pronounceable, gave me 500 sats. And I asked him to do that because I wanted to make sure that he's got a question, and he asked it on Nostr, and I'm like, dude, boost the show so that I will definitely see it when I come to this segment. He's got a great question here. He says, I've been thinking about your cathedral concept. What do you envision as the minimum property size to keep the ecosystem operating? That's an interesting question, and it really depends on what do you mean by ecosystem operation. If you could do cathedral at almost any scale that you want. It depends on how much land you have and how much water you have and how much manpower you have, right? So if I were to say minimum viable size, I actually have to ask the question, what's your purpose? The purpose, when I look at cathedral, my purpose is to be able to have something that you can run enough ruminants through that make a profit at the end of the year. And they're with cattle prices the way they are, with sale barn prices the way they are, and with if you're following my friend Texas Slim from the Beef Initiative, ranching has been in trouble for a long, long time. And now we've got a situation where herd size globally, not just in the United States, is down to really, really low numbers. So the entire system is confused. And when I look at cathedral and I look at the plan for it being 1,000 years and look at it for taking care of at least one family, if not multiple families, fed for for a millennia at least. I look at it that way, but I also look at how much cattle do I have to be able to run through the system to turn a profit in today's meat economy. These are all really good questions, and they're all questions that are going to whose answers will change given the landscape of the day. The question will always be the same, but the answer will also will only ever change depending on economics. So let's get back to the question. What's the minimum viable size for the cathedral? You could probably do it on 100 acres. You're not going to be running cows. You'll probably be running sheep. You may, or even something smaller, maybe llamas. Or maybe you're not running ruminals at all. Maybe you're doing nothing but chickens. And that's how you're generating there has to be revenue from every single system. Cathedral is a combination of systems. It is a system level design. It is a system of systems of systems. These are they're all nested within each other and they're all built to work with each other. From that standpoint, you could probably do a model of this on 5 acres. It's not going to generate what you think it will generate. But let's go to the other end. Why am I at 1,000 acres? I've said it before. I'll say it again just to remind everybody. That's the mid-size for this system, I think. Like as at an I guess I want to say at an industrial scale. Because this is everything about this system is at scale. And I think that 1,000 acres puts it firmly into industrial scale. And I think from an agriculture standpoint, it's right in the middle. To remain at industrial scale where you've got enough cattle running through, by the end of the year, you're going to make a profit, and maybe it's 150 head, 640 acres. I think the minimum size for an industrial scale operation. In fact, the first cathedral was built around one section of land, which is 640 acres. For some reason, I've got a good reason. I went to 1,000 acres because there's a book, and its title is 1,000 Acres, and it's a farming. It's a book about agriculture, except it's a fiction. It's definitely a fictional book, but it's a retelling of Shakespeare's King Lear. And I don't want to get off into the weeds of this, but 1,000 acres actually also makes sense. It's about 1.5 miles by 1.5 miles. And there are many properties that are old wheat farms and hay farms. Many of them are 1,000-acre farms. Then I go to say, instead of like acres, let's talk about a hectare, which is a little over 2 acres. So what you would have is my maximum size of cathedral, which would be about 3 miles by 3 miles. After that, I think you need a whole other team to be able to manage another, like a whole other system. I think getting outside of 3 miles by 3 miles, that would probably tax any management system, although I could very well be wrong. So getting back to the original question, what's the minimum viable size to keep the ecosystem operating? I really do think you could pull this off on 5 acres. It would not be anything like Cathedral because I'm nowhere close to done with the systems that are operating and involved in the Cathedral system. I haven't gone over anywhere close to all the subsystems that are operating. We haven't even gotten to the carbon group yet. And that's where Bitcoin resides. And we haven't even gotten there yet. We haven't talked about greenhouses. Not really. We haven't talked about entomologists and how entomology is going to play a role. We haven't talked about how we intake gardening mass from the local municipalities. We haven't talked about wood chippers and shredders and dryers and kilns, and we haven't touched on any of that. The next episode of Cathedral is going to be about grazing, and we're still not going to be getting into the guts and feathers, dude. This could easily end up being 15, maybe even 20 episodes of just Cathedral, and I don't mind that because I love talking about this thing, and I get to resurface this content later on in maybe articles or a book. I don't know. So, but we're not even close to done. So if I really want to be nitpicky, I got to tell ATYH, wait till we're done. Wait until you have the whole picture in your head and then ask me that question again. I hope I've given you enough to chew on now, but ask me again later on. That's the weather report. Welcome to part 2 of the news that you can use. The Lady and the Fat Man. New BIS plan could make dirty crypto harder to cash out. Why am I leading with Lady and the Fat Man? Have you seen the head of the BIS? Dude, Bürgermeister Meisterbürger. I'm telling you, Adrian Zmunsky is going to tell us a lot more about this from Cointelegraph, by the way. The Bank for International Settlements, or the BIS, has proposed a provenance-based risk score system for crypto to fiat off-ramps. You see where this is going, don't you? In a Wednesday BIS bulletin, the institution outlined, quote, an approach to anti-money laundering compliance for crypto assets, recommending that a compliance score be assigned to crypto holdings before they are exchanged for fiat currency. They're trying to strip away fungibility here. This is the most important part. They're trying to strip fungibility away from, well, they're saying crypto, but Bitcoin would also be involved in this. So I'll explain a little bit more later on. Quote, an AML compliance score based on the likelihood that a particular crypto asset unit or balance is linked with illicit activity may be referenced at points of contact with the banking system, the document said. The score would then be used to prevent inflows of illicit funds and encourage a, quote, duty of care among crypto market participants. The BIS said existing anti-money laundering approaches relying on trusted intermediaries have limited effectiveness in the context of crypto. Public blockchain transaction histories could provide valuable tools for compliance monitoring, it said. Transaction histories. Look, let's talk a little bit about fungibility before we continue. I didn't know what fungibility or fungible actually meant until, well, I've known about it for a while, but there was a time that I had no idea what the hell that word means. If I have a dollar bill and you have a dollar bill, those $2 bills are the same. They're worth the same. There's no way that I can clip a transaction history to a dollar bill. Not really. I mean, they've got serial numbers, but that's just not the way cash works, right? So I can give you my dollar without ever knowing that it was involved in criminal drug lords in Colombia, right? And you would accept that dollar and understand that you'd be able to give that dollar and your other dollar to somebody, and it would be worth $2, whatever that's worth nowadays. But you get the point. Gold is the same way. I can't tag an atom of gold with a history of where it's been. So therefore, you look at that atom of gold like the atom of gold you've got in your other pocket. Scale that up to a 1 ounce coin or a 1 ounce, just a 1 ounce round with no stamping on it at all. You can weigh it, you measure its size, you know its volume, and then boom, you've got size and volume, you got density. We know what the density of gold is. Nothing about that has anything to do with where that gold's been, under what circumstances it was mined. Nobody knows. It's all melted together. I take two coins, I want one bigger coin, I melt them together, they fuse, it's still gold. That's fungibility. What BIS is suggesting is to strip fungibility out of all of these things by using, well, what Bitcoin already has involved in it. It's transaction history. And that's what the fact that it has always bothered people. And a lot of us have always said, well, that's just the Bitcoin is for enemies. And here we are again, because the BIS and the IMF and the World Bank are definitely not friendly with Bitcoin. It is a measure of control that they do not have, that they wish they have. And it looks like Augustin Carstens, the fat man from Mexico, that's what he's trying to do here. The BIS claims that since 2022, stablecoins have overtaken Bitcoin as the asset of choice among criminals using crypto. The document cites reports by crypto forensic firms Chainalysis and TRM Labs showing that as of 2024, stablecoins accounted for about 63% of all illicit transactions. Pausing to say Chainalysis has never been right about a fucking thing in their life. I'm sorry, but they haven't. They get more people in trouble than they help. I wouldn't believe that number at all for any reason whatsoever. Continuing on, the BIS's AML compliance scores would reference Bitcoin UTXO or wallets in the case of stablecoins. Whatever. I don't know what. The BIS's AML compliance scores would reference Bitcoin unspent transaction outputs or UTXOs or wallets in the case of stablecoins. This makes no sense. There would be risk thresholds that would determine whether to allow or deny off-ramp requests. The institution recommends that crypto off-ramps should be responsible for respecting such a system. Quote, imposing a duty of care on these entities would incentivize them to avoid accepting or paying out tainted coins, the taint, as failure to comply could result in fines or other penalties. You see where this is going. They don't care. They just want control. And then you have to ask yourself, why do they want control? And if your answer is because they're taking care of us and they're going to make sure that society is civilized, then please go throw yourself off of a cliff right now. But wait until I slap you and beat you around the head and shoulders, because that's just dumb at this point. There is no reason to be that freaking ignorant at this point in time. There's no reason to be that ignorant. The proposal also noted that individual holders could face compliance requirements. BIS said that while users may have received tainted assets in good faith if compliance information was scarce, quote, such an argument would be less persuasive if there were widespread and affordable compliance service providers. Oh, the middlemen, please. Yes, let's have more middlemen. BIS predicts that in such a system, tainted stablecoins could trade at a discount. Risk scores could also accompany the token as it moves within the permissionless blockchain, embedding the scores into the UTXO or wallet itself. According to BIS, this would lead to a duty of care being imposed on users as well, potentially influencing behavior in decentralized transactions. Do you know what happens with this system being in place? All money becomes worthless. Because if you attach transaction history to anything, what you will find is that the human activity, which is why money is here in the first freaking place, will always taint the money. Eventually, a dollar bill, if you've got a dollar bill in your wallet, I guarantee you, scum of the earth, predatory, worthless pieces of garbage have used that bill. So think about it. What if we were able to see that on air, like let's say before Bitcoin, before digital banking, where you had to have cash? You know, like my parents, they would go to the bank and they would get cash out of the bank account, and they would, my mom would get like, $500 at the time, like $500. It would last her for a week and a half because shit was that cheap back then, right? She would have $500. What if they glowed a different color depending on who? Like a baddie got a hold of this $100 bill. Oh my God. And now it's glowing blue. So she takes it to the meat guy. She goes over to Hank's Meat Market, in Midland, Texas, and she buys a couple steaks with it. It's glowing blue. Hank says, now for you, for this bill, no. That ain't $100. This is worth $50 to me. And then let's say let's say my mom gives the money to Hank, says, okay, I don't have any, I can't, I need to get out of here. My kid's crying. Take the 50. I'll eat the $50 of value. Let's just say that happens. She hands it to Hank. Let's say Hank traffics in sexualized children. Okay. All of a sudden, the minute that bill gets handed over to Hank and Hank uses that bill to do anything that progresses his illicit activity, it's now worth $25. Then he hands that to for whatever reason, a good person says, yeah, I'll take it, but I'm only going to give you this other $25. And then, so now he's got a green, like a flashing blue bill that everybody knows is only worth $25. And he hands it to somebody who is another snake in the grass. All of the value ends up getting wiped out eventually. And it will get wiped out eventually. The BIS is not thinking. They are not bringing their best to the table. I can already see the absolute complete collapse of all value of all currencies almost immediately. And I don't work for the BIS. And it's an inescapable conclusion. I don't have to be a rocket scientist. I don't have to be a brain surgeon. I don't have to be a Nobel laureate economist to know that what this is suggesting is the terminal end to all value of all money, doesn't matter what format it's in. Crypto, stablecoins, Bitcoin, cash, CBDCs, digital yuan, doesn't matter. If this goes into effect, all value will be wiped out. And that may be exactly what they want. And again, if you're sitting there going, they really do care about us and they really want to take care of us, please, please, please go throw yourself off the highest cliff you can find immediately. Run, don't walk, to get yourself out of the gene pool. I'm done with you. I'm done with people like you. Let's move on to Google, because this shit's coming. Google has received a $35 billion offer to buy Chrome as the AI browser fight escalates. So, oh, by the way, Jason Nelson is writing it for Decrypt. Search.com has entered the race to acquire Google Chrome, topping Perplexity AI's $34.5 billion bid with a $35 billion counteroffer backed by JP Morgan Chase and a consortium of private equity firms. The $500 million move intensifies a high-stakes battle over the future of web browsing and AI search as more challengers position themselves to take control of the world's most used browser. Quote, "We see this as both offense and defense," Melissa Anderson, president of Public Good, which owns Search.com, told Decrypt. Quote, "Acquiring Google, or rather acquiring Chrome, gives us the scale to accelerate adoption of our AI search platform and a direct connection to users," end quote. The U.S. Department of Justice sued Google in 2020, alleging it illegally dominates search and advertising. In April, a federal court ruled that Google had monopolized the digital ad market. Chrome accounts for about 65% of global browser use, but a March 2025 Wharton report estimated Google's control of search traffic at nearly 90%. On Tuesday, Perplexity AI submitted its $34.5 billion proposal, positioning the deal as a way to preserve an open source web, and counter big tech's grip on browser infrastructure. Unnamed institutional investors back that offer. Both Search.com and Perplexity are framing their bids as remedies to that dominance. For Search.com, however, the acquisition is about more than just infrastructure. It's about access. Oh my God, that was directly written by AI. I can tell. It's more than X, it's Y. And when there's that big M, or I think they call it a W hyphen in between those two things, that's your clue that sentence was written by AI. You have to go clean that crap up. You have to. It's not X, it's Y is a telltale sign that something was written by AI, but I digress. Quote, "Google and Bing control the lion's share of search." Danny Beebe, CEO of Public Goods parent company Ad.com, added, quote, "For us to catapult growth and provide true incremental traffic, Chrome is the access point. That's the gateway," end quote. Search.com is a division of Public Good itself, owned by Ad.com, a digital ad network founded in 1993. The company estimates it brings in $300 to $400 million annually through advertising and believes owning Chrome could push that into the billions. Search.com's bid matches the structure of Perplexity's offer, including Chrome's codebase, all the trademarks, all infrastructure, and all user data, but it adds user-focused perks like ad-free browsing, cashback for searches, and 60% revenue share model for publishers. Quote, "It's part of our commitment to ethical AI. We're not scraping content without compensation," Anderson said. Quote, "We want to support journalism, and we offer a 60% ad revenue share to the publishers who contribute content," end quote. The bids land as AI features become key features in the browser market. Microsoft has added Copilot mode to Edge browser. Brave includes the Leo assistant. Opera runs on Google's Gemini and is testing a next-gen browser called Neon. An OpenAI-built browser is rumored to be in development. Search.com, which unveiled a generative AI platform earlier this month, said Chrome would serve as the backbone for what it calls a platform built for public interest and not just profit. Quote, "Anyone or everyone should have free, equitable access to knowledge," Anderson said. "We want to deliver that while keeping publishers paid and consumers in control." Sounds like suit speak to me. But Google has not publicly responded to either proposal. According to Anderson and Beebe, the company has received Search.com's offer. With two competing bids on the table, the future of Chrome and the role of AI in the browser space is now firmly in play. Quote, "We've put a stake in the ground. It's now up to them." And Perplexity did not respond to Decrypt's request for comment. So there's a battle going on because browsers are just going to essentially have AI embedded, which means it's going to touch every part of your browser. I'm telling you, you're gonna have to learn how to use it. Otherwise, it's going to run away from you, and the next thing you know, the people that did decide to learn how to use it are going to be running circles around the people that didn't. And there's, like I said, there's naive prompting, and then there's like toolage. They are different. Somebody who knows how to use AI as a tool is something to be recognized and reckoned with, while those that just naively prompt and treat it like a game or a plaything or a toy, they're not understanding what it can actually do. And if you're careful about it, you can build a house with a hammer. If you're not, you can smash your big toe. Depends on how you want to go. Last up for today, paying to an IBAN in Bitcoin. This is out of atlas21.com. See if there's no author, as usual. Despite it being possible to exchange goods and services in Bitcoin since its early years, its adoption as a payment method remains still limited. What Bitcoin is facing and will have to continue to face in the coming years is the process of monetary evolution. Today, in fact, there are still few businesses that directly accept Bitcoin payments. In most cases, Bitcoiners find themselves forced to convert their funds into fiat currency to be able to make daily payments. However, this barrier is starting to fade thanks to the emergence of new services. Over the years, the market has witnessed the birth of various services specialized in facilitating Bitcoin payments. Among the pioneers in this sector stand out, oh God, this is a terrible sentence, just Bitrefill. They're talking about Bitrefill, a platform that allows purchasing gift cards and topping up services using Bitcoin directly. And over time, similar solutions have developed that allow paying for various goods and services. Well, last January, when Bull Bitcoin extended its services to the European market, a new possibility was made available. The Canadian broker, known for its Bitcoin-only philosophy and strictly non-custodial approach, offers a solution that allows paying any service or entity that accepts bank transfers in euros using Bitcoin directly. This means being able to make payments to suppliers, public entities, companies, individuals, and even top up debit cards linked to an IBAN, I-B-A-N, all without ever having to manually convert Bitcoin into fiat currency. And then they run through a list of instructions on how to do it. We don't need that. So I'm skipping down. The possibility of paying any service that accepts bank transfers in euros using Bitcoin directly eliminates one of the main barriers to adoption as a medium of exchange, simplifying the daily life of Bitcoiners and offering the opportunity to live in the Bitcoin standard without having to continuously resort to conversions into fiat currency. It is a real bridge between the Bitcoin ecosystem and the traditional banking system. Okay, so what did we just get finished reading about the Bank of International Settlements, the BIS? It all comes together here. Bull Bitcoin has been around forever. They were a solid company by the time I got into Bitcoin in 2015. They've always been above board about being Bitcoin only. They have never shitcoined. They are one of the most trusted names in Bitcoin today. So this entire story is talking about that they're providing a service where, in a roundabout way, you can actually pay like you're using your bank account. And that's why I didn't want to read the instructions. If you want to do this, if you want to just be able to use Bitcoin, then I highly recommend going and checking out Bull Bitcoin and read this article again from Atlas 21. The URL to this article, as are all article URLs, will be included in today's show notes. And if your podcast app does chapters, like all good podcasting 2.0 apps should, then that story will actually be in the chapter section, and you can hit the URL from your chapter. Go read it. All right, because I want to get into this last part before I let you go for the day. The BIS has delivered a roadmap on how to destroy the value of all currencies, because all currencies are going to eventually be touched by somebody who is bad and uses that currency for bad things, which means unless they continuously print brand new money, which again, the BIS, this may be exactly why the BIS wants to do this, then all money will eventually lose its value because it will eventually have been touched by somebody with bad intentions and used it for something with bad intentions. But then I have to say, and I was going to say it, but I've completely, mind fart on that one during the BIS story. We don't have to do that. Wouldn't it be nice if there was a digital money that nobody had control of, that only we could self-custody and traveled at the speed of light? Oh yeah, that's right. We have that. This is a call for the Bitcoin circular economy. Between Bull Bitcoin doing what they're able to do, where you can just use Bitcoin, and for all intents and purposes, on the other side of that, it looks like you just used your bank account. That we have the technology to not have to worry about what Augustine Carstens and the BIS wants us to do. I can just pay you in Bitcoin, and you can just make a good and service to send me for that Bitcoin. Hence the Circle P, which I'm not doing today because it's Friday and I'm just going to, I didn't set up a vendor, but in either event, that's what the Circle P is about. We've been trying to get people to understand the value of a circular Bitcoin economy for years. Steak and Shake now takes Bitcoin via the Lightning Network, no less, and it's caused them to actually have a 10% increase in revenue on a store over store year, quarter over quarter. Not bad for taking Bitcoin. And guess what happens? They're literally, they don't have to worry about what the BIS says. Now, does that mean that Bitcoin completely escapes the BIS and their on-ramping credit score for different currencies? Not necessarily, but nothing, even if I have coins that the BIS says are bad coins, you may say, I don't care where your coins went. I don't care where they're going. I just care that I have your UTXO now. So please send me the Bitcoin and I will send you this yummy jar of something that I've made in my home kitchen, whatever it is. I don't have to I don't have to comply. You can just not comply. So this may actually be the best way in the world if BIS and all the banks and all the institutions say, let's implement this currency credit score across the board to even Bitcoin, because they can't change the code, but they can look at transactions and essentially, for all intents and purposes, clip to a UTXO a history, a bad history or a good history or possibly a neutral history. It won't be exactly clipped to my UTXO, but if I spin that UTXO and somebody makes a comparison in a lookup table or some kind of database on that UTXO, they might be able to make the decision, I don't want this coin because Augustine Carstens says it might hurt me. Show me on the doll where the Bitcoin touched you, Augustine Carstens. In anyway, I don't have to comply. In fact, I would make it a personal ethic that I will never look into the history of your coins when you give them to me for anything that I do. I don't look at my at the donations I get to this show. I don't go like ask Arkham Intelligence or something to please scan this UTXO so I can see if a baddie had it. I don't care. I don't care, and I never will. And as long as we don't comply with this shit, and as long as we have the ability, and we better make sure that we always retain the ability for me to give you Bitcoin and you to give me Bitcoin in a completely peer-to-peer fashion, self-custodially and more, then we will be fine. It will also enable us to be able to be the Gandhi of our day. Civil disobedience. I'm not going to comply. And unless you're going to assign a police officer or a detective to me to shadow me everywhere I go, then you're not going to know when and if I make a Bitcoin transaction. Because if I do it right, you don't know that I have Bitcoin. And if you do know that I have Bitcoin, you don't know how much Bitcoin I have. And if I do it even better, you won't know where it is, even if you know how much I have. And by the way, doing it better means that nobody knows anything, which is why I always say don't wear Bitcoin swag. It get you hurt. But getting back to this, you can just not comply. You can just pay me in Bitcoin for something that you think I have is valuable to you. I can not comply by taking your Bitcoin and not comparing it against a lookup table of bad UTXOs. This is the civil disobedience that's coming for us. And we better be prepared to gut up and do it. Because if you think what Gandhi and his people did was easy, You're wrong. They were probably freaking terrified that they were just going to be shot dead. At one point or another, humanity is going to have to gut up like that again. It happens all the time. Our complacency, the complacency of the human spirit, will always lead us to where tyrants rule. Because we've got better things to do. None of us really want to rule. Which is why I think we should have a lottery on rulers. I should literally get a phone call or an email that says, hey, you're going to be president of the United States for the next 4 years. Your name came up. And my first thing will be like, God dang it. I don't want to do that. I don't want to move to Washington, D.C. I don't want to be president. I don't want to talk to these assholes. But if all of these assholes were rotating because everybody got, called up in a lottery for either like from city council all the way up to vice president and president of the United States, well, things would be quite a bit different. It wouldn't be a great big, what do they call it? Popularity contest, which is essentially what we have, except the people that are popular are real dicks, and they're very dangerous people, and they are involved in some of the most illicit shit that you could possibly imagine. If you don't think that the United States government is involved in child trafficking, you're wrong. And they always have been. It doesn't matter the president. It doesn't matter the administration. And that's just one thing. They've completely destroyed your value. They've stolen directly from all of us as United States citizens. If you don't think that they have, again, run, don't walk to the nearest highest cliff you can find and just keep on going. I'm tired of coddling people that think that these people like us. Civil disobedience is going to have to be performed at one point or another. The BIS and their installation, if they do it, their installation of a credit score for currencies is going to be, at that point, will be the announcement to the world that civil disobedience is now on the table. And you can just say, I'm just using Bitcoin. I'm not going to use your fiat, because that shit they can clip permanently in the digital realm, because they control it. They do not control Bitcoin. They will control Ether. They will control Sol. They will end up controlling Cardano if they don't already. All of it it's going to boil down to civil disobedience. And if we survive it, I'll see you on the other side. This has been Bitcoin and I'm your host, David Bennett. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and hope to see you again real soon. Have a great day.